Alright everyone, it's time to talk about the rise of the deplorables because what the MSM and the lame establishment seem to have believed is that after the election, the MAGA thing would magically disappear because it was like a fluke movement revolving around simply one person, and they sorely underestimated the rise of populism in the US, which encompasses a large proportion of the population under any circumstances. We basically have a four-paradigm system in current US politics. The Republican Party, glued together solely by Trump, is now coming unglued, and the Democrats were unhinged and unglued to begin with as the left drags the neoliberals to the side. You've got the old guard neoliberals, like a Pelosi or a Clinton, and they're not very happy people. They're openly being embattled by the second paradigm on the Dem side, which is like the Gang of Four, like AOC, the goofy squad there. These people are now openly calling for Pelosi and Schumer to be outed. They're openly calling for socialism in the broader sense, and it's a broad tent socialism. They're not calling for a little more welfare or just student loan debt forgiveness or something, which is a dumb idea. They're calling for an omnibus leftism that would cost hundreds of trillions of total dollars and is incapable of actually being implemented. Problem is, of course, these people are fanatics and they don't like negotiating. This is why they're unstable. On the other side, you have like the boring neocon GOP that's been completely routed by Trump for 4 years. He's basically destroyed their morale to the point where he gave them Stockholm Syndrome. And it's really funny. And the former libertarian sort of core has gravitated towards the new wave of the GOP / the right in general, which is like the America First MAGA crowd. It's got populism, it's got elements of populism, libertarianism, and nativism sort of all together, and a civic nationalism overlap as well. And it's sort of a big tent broad core of the dissident right. And it even encompasses groups and individuals that have nothing to do, really, when you think about it, with conservatism. For instance, I'm not a Republican. I don't like the Republican Party by and large. I don't like the Bush family. I don't like the McConnells of the world. I give him begrudging support once in a while, but still call him fucking Turtle Man. I don't like most Republicans. Most of them are cowards, sellouts, warmongers, or sleazy empty suits. About the same as the Democrats, just with a different letter after their name. But I have no problem with populism. I think it's the norm for a nation state that's properly functioning for its government to take up the radical concept that American workers and American middle classers shouldn't be constantly abused and sold down the river to foreign states in order to allow predatory billionaire multinationalists to come in and exploit one another's peasant labor. Basically, populism is the only thing standing in the way of serfdom. If you go with the far left, you've got serfdom under the government, and if you go with like the neocon neolibs, you get increasingly corporate serfdom. It's the same fucking shit. Either way, one hand is washing the other. It's just with the left, they want the government to be the supreme abuser, and with the old style, like the neolibs, they want the state to take almost a backseat to the business model. That's why they were so pissed off at Trump, because he's from the donor class. And the neolib neocon part, they don't want the donor class having political power. They want them to focus on making the money and then donate it to the politicians, and then the politicians will scrub their back at the same time. It's basically, think of two people giving each other a jerk-off, giving them a reach-around. That's basically how neoliberals and neocons work. They cause wars. They go into a third world state. They fuck everything up. They install a puppet. They drain them dry. The puppet gets rich. They get richer. Everyone wins except for the 99% of the population that they just splattered all over the sand or in a jungle somewhere. That's the old way of the GOP. That's the old way of the Dems. They're both facing forced reform. Without the will of the populistic America First crowd, the GOP will consistently lose. Without the support of the far left, the Democrats will consistently lose. What you're going to see is that the parties are going to be dragged further out from one another. Essentially, instead of the old status quo where you didn't really have a choice in politics, the Democrat and the Republican, like in 2012, great example, Romney and Obama, if you were to put what they said through a voice program so you didn't know who was saying what, you'd think they were the same fucking person. It was a no-choice election. I wrote in Ron Paul then. Before that, in 2008, there was kind of a choice just because Bush was so terrible, and it's like the default is vote for Obama, but then he sold out and did the same things Bush had been doing by and large. There was no choice in 2012. In 2016, we were given an actual choice. Trump was considered far out and either considered to be a god emperor or a terrible fascist by virtue of the fact that he didn't fit in with the neocon neoliberal core. And think about it, most of what he proposed was mild reform. Much of what he proposed was what the candidates during the primaries promise every 4 years. Basically, Republicans and Democrats have been spending decades and decades promising to plug the gaps in the border, deliver tax relief to the middle class, tell the corporations to hoof it and fucking mind their own business, but actually help them with repealing regulations that are burdensome and hurting American workers. We heard it for years and years. He's the first one to accomplish it. The fact that he managed to do this and became beloved among most of the working and middle class in most of the United States meant that he spawned a movement that's far broader. The left, at the moment, the closest thing they have to a figure like that is Bernie Sanders. And he's embattled too because he's old, white, male, and straight. And it's really, really funny because the left isn't doing what the MAGA crowd is doing. They've coalesced, they've got their central figure, although it's not necessary to even have one technically, kind of, sort of, but they're congealed. All of these different group ideologies have sort of thrown in together because the alternative they understand is so much terribly worse. They look at the far left and they say, my God, if the Democrats listen to them, there's a threat that they con like Beijing Biden or someone into doing their will. It will destroy the United States as a great power. It would cause a depression. It would be severely authoritarian, and you have to fight back. The GOP, in my estimation, this is my expectation, will take a look at the massive and ever-increasing movement, the subculture within the GOP, that is tacitly technically kind of sort of Republican and even encompasses many registered Republicans, by the way. And they will say, well, we can't resist them. We can't say no to them. Yeah, the deplorables, the people that were maligned by the mainline political process for decades and decades, thrown into wars, robbed of their careers, robbed of their taxes, have finally had their comeuppance. And it ain't going anywhere soon. And by the way, this is definitely an improvement on the old guard GOP. I could never be a Republican under the auspices of someone like Bush. Fuck them. They're all terrible. All they want to do is kill people all day, and they take your money too. They just take 0.5% less of your money if you're in the middle class, and they expect you to suck them off in return for this great favor. But at least at the end of the day, they'll say Jesus Christ a couple times a year, so you know that they're really religious. And the left bitches about it constantly, and it's always a perennial funny issue for me. So yeah. Merry almost Christmas. The deplorables are coming. It's going to be funny. I'm getting the same sort of vibe and energy right now, kind of in a way, that you got in like 2015, to tell the truth. There's an energy in the air, and it's not good for the left. Trust me. That's about all. Peace out.